Welcome back to ShamRockin, the show that covers what's moving, breaking, shaking, or bottlenecking the manufacturing world. I'm John Casey, and today's topic is data, strategy, and manufacturing. This will be the first of at least 7 podcasts covering all angles of strategy in manufacturing. Today's topic is going to cover data, the power of data, and, well, perhaps some of the mysteries or challenges of data. I'm joined today by Jesper Kehlet, CEO of the Hoalani Group out of Carmel, I believe out of Carmel, Indiana. Welcome, Jesper.
Thank you. Good to be here.
How's your morning going so far?
Had a great morning. Things are moving and shaking.
I think hopefully some of the audience knows a little bit about me, but tell the audience a little bit about what you do, a little bit about your background, and then we can kind of jump into the topic from there.
Right. So what I do is I run a consulting practice. Right? That's what I do right now. That's basically being the janitor and the kindergarten teacher and the advisor and everything all in once, right? Because the wonderful thing about consulting practices is you get to deal with so many different people, both on the employee front and the client front, and you actually get to help them make the right decisions, hopefully along the way. Where I came from, right? I started out thinking I was going to be a rock musician touring with a band, to getting an economics degree, thinking that I was going to be a stockbroker, ending up in the technology world, where I've been for the last 35 years, maybe. Worked for a company out of Denmark. Damgard later merged with a company called Navision that Microsoft acquired in 2002, just on the heels of acquiring Great Plains Software, which kickstarted the whole Microsoft ERP adventure back then.
Okay.
And I've been starting companies and running companies ever since in the technology space, but I focus more on business-oriented consulting and strategy, profitability, etc. That's where I am right now.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's obviously a pretty impressive background in technology. I always say my technology background is figuring out how to turn the computer on each day. That's where I consider myself proficient. So,
Right.
but not too long ago, Jesper and I were chatting about data and the importance of data and even the perception of data collection, specifically in manufacturing. And one of the things I had asked then, Jesper, that I want to briefly explore again is, why data collection still gets overlooked. I think, and then I want to hear your opinion, is I think that a lot of manufacturers still rely on kind of tribal knowledge, or this is the way we've always done it, and they don't feel like they have the time, or they don't really seem to be very process bound, et cetera. Yeah, I'm just curious, what are your thoughts? Why does data get overlooked in the future in the first place?
I think data get overlooked primarily for one reason, is that people trust their gut instincts
Hmm.
on making decisions. It's Daniel Kahneman's System One and System Two thinking. A lot of people think that, oh, I got this under control. I can see what's happening. I got this deal closing here. I got this machine hopping out on the manufacturing floor. Everything's
Right.
fine. I know exactly where I am. Right? Until something breaks down, until you didn't get that deal. And then somebody may ask you, say, hey, how many of these deals that you had in the pipeline didn't you get? Well, I think maybe about 20, until you look at the data and figure out, oh, shoot, I lost about 50% of all the deals this year.
We got
Right?
11 or 10. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Or you look at the data collection on the manufacturing floor and you think that's just hopping along. But guess what? Joe out there, he makes sure that it's running so you don't see all the breakdowns, and that actually the efficiency of that machine may only have been 70% instead of 99.9%.
Hmm.
But unless you collect that data, you are not going to be able to make informed decisions about what you do. And that's where I'm very passionate about things, because data collection, if you don't do that, your decision making is basically a coin toss. It's a
Hmm.
50-50. You don't really know if you're going to make the right decision. Now, if you have some experience, you may get up to a 60-40 or 70-30.
Right.
But in
Yeah.
order to get up to solid decisions that drive profitability and revenue in a business, you need to get above 90% in your data collection. You need to know exactly what you're dealing with. There's still going to be variances out there, of course. That's life. That's what life is all about. But to make the right decisions, you need good data. And if you don't have good data, you're making the wrong decisions. And then you're also losing revenue and profitability.
It becomes like a reactive, I guess,
Yep.
decision making. Yeah, and it becomes
Yeah.
emotional. And I get a lot into that side of it, into, kind of helping people with the behaviors and the processes and such. Yeah, I see a lot of emotional decisions and even distractions, and some of them are legitimate distractions, right? So, like one of them,
There are, but the reactions and the emotional decisions also will cost you a ton of money on the back end because now you're trying to recover for the bad decisions, which means you're going to have to run even faster, bring in more people. You take them away from the things that actually bring in business and profitability. So now you've lost even more by making that bad decision.
because you're inconsistent, right? I mean, you're
Mhm.
creating inconsistencies, and inconsistencies. I mean, everyone knows that, right? If you're consistent, you should hit 80% versus, inconsistencies will lead you to 50 and 60%. So,
Yep.
and then that creates more stress, and then that creates more distractions, and then I always say that, the circle keeps going. So,
Right. You got a spiral going on.
but what does good data actually mean on a manufacturing floor? You've been on a lot of manufacturing floors. I've been on a lot of manufacturing floors. So what does good data look like?
Good data is data that's driven by revenue, by projections of the business into the future. You
Hmm.
cannot just produce a trinket in the hope that it's going to sell something, right? If you do not have a sales pipeline that shows you that you're going to be able to sell this stuff, you're not going to be able to make any money off it. Essentially, you're just manufacturing to inventory cost at that point. So good data starts with the revenue side. It starts with the projections on the sales side. You need good projections on the sales side. You need contracts closed and all that stuff. It's back in the software world. There used to be this saying, I think it originated at IBM many years ago, was sell it, design it, develop it, right? So, and there's some truth to that. That's where the word vaporware in the software world also came from, because you didn't have anything but vapor when you sold the thing originally.
Huh.
And the
Okay.
same thing goes for the manufacturing world. You need to be able to sell this with the promise that you got to keep, that you can actually manufacture the stuff to that deadline or the timeline that you set with the client. So it starts with the sales side. Then you go back from there and you say, okay, I know I can sell this, so now I'm going to have to manufacture this. And that's where things start moving from. If you do not have that data in the front end, you're not going to be able to manufacture to the right specs, quantities, cost on the back end.
So a lot of my customers are more in the manufacturing space than the sales. I guess they're both, right? I mean, but like even day to day, like so on the floor, I mean, what do you think real data looks like in a manufacturing site? And what's the difference between good data and not good data?
So good data on the manufacturing floor is data that actually is collected from the real world instead of data that's collected based on experience and gut feeling.
Hmm.
What that means to me is that
Hmm.
if I can see a machine that's only running 70% of the time, but I have a gut feeling that it's probably running 99% of the time, I'm losing out. I'm losing manufacturing capacity. I'm adding cost to my manufacturing line. And that thing that now costs $10, if the machine was running efficiently, may now cost 12 or $13. So if you do not have that data in order to make sure that you can put your effort into having the right machines, fixing the machines at the right time, and all that stuff, you're essentially adding cost to your manufacturing line. And by adding cost to your manufacturing line, you're going to reduce your profit margins because chances are that you're in a competitive situation and you cannot just increase prices. There's a certain price equilibrium that you have to target, right? It's all about price elasticity. You can't just, if you're selling mugs like this that you're manufacturing, well, and this one is being sold for $15 or whatever it is by the majority of everybody else out there, you can't just go and sell it for 2025 just because you have manufacturing issues.
Hmm.
Nobody's going to buy from you.
Right. Yeah,
So you need that effective and efficient and accurate data in order to figure out where can I reduce my cost.
and I think that's even more important in small mid-size. I mean, it's important in any business. I think the bigger companies are a little better at it. I think with some of the small mid-sized companies, correct me if I'm wrong, seem to miss the boat on is Like you said, they look at it and they go, well, it breaks down a lot, or it doesn't break down that much. And they're not using, in my opinion, real data. They're trying to guesstimate what's going on. And to your point, that adds so much cost. One of the ones and I'll be careful, but the two companies are actually out of business. I looked at these two companies at the store once who sell Pop-Tarts, and they were
Hmm.
trying to sell them at a price point way beyond what, well, I'm using a brand name, by the way, using Pop-Tarts.
Right.
That's, of course, Kellogg's. But, Kellogg's was selling for, we'll just say $3 a box, and they were selling for two and three and four times what Kellogg's was selling for. Kellogg's is a known brand name. They're obviously getting destroyed in manufacturing, distribution, procurement, all in all the metrics. And so I think that becomes overwhelming to some of these small, mid-sized companies. And I think that's part of the reason why they don't collect data. That's just my theory, right? It's so overwhelming that it makes them go back and rely on their gut instinct. I don't know what their thoughts are.
That's
And like you
actually,
deal with these folks as well. I mean, it's just from a
but
third party perspective.
it's actually a brilliant example because if you think about it, that data collection right there starts in the grocery aisles,
Hmm?
where you go into the grocery aisles and you look at things, you go like, oh, there's my product. It looks really beautiful, but you don't pay attention to the Pop Tarts that's like less than 50% of the cost of your product right next to it. What you got to do instead is you got to ask, whomever is coming into the store buying these things for themselves, their children, all that stuff, says, hey, why are you buying the Pop Tart instead of this one? And if they can't see any benefit to it, and it's right next to the Pop Tart that they know and they love and they've grown up with since they were kids, right? They're going to choose the Pop Tart at $3 instead of $8.
Hmm?
So you need that data to figure out where you're coming from. That actually, there's a great book on that whole subject, by the way. That's it's called Marketing Warfare. It's back from the 90s.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that. Yeah.
Right. And one of the things about marketing warfare is that you have to look at who you're competing against. Kellogg's, they can use defensive marketing tactics all day long because they're the market leader. They have the Pop Tart, which means that you need to do something else in order to sell your stuff. You need the data to figure out why you're not selling it. Maybe you need to go and put your stuff over in the lifestyle section, health section, whatever, and say, hey,
Right. Hmm.
this thing's gonna like cure cancer, make coffee on the moon, weld underwater, whatever it can do, right? That's how things work out over there. Like kombucha, right? You're not selling kombucha against Coca-Cola and Pepsi. No, you're selling kombucha because it's healthy and it
Right.
increases your chance of not getting sick.
It's once you have the customer, then you still have to remain competitive, though. And I think that's what a lot of these companies miss is that there's so much opportunity, in my opinion, so much in
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing and distribution, so much cost that they could take out of the system. Because at the end of the day, I mean, today, I mean, it's the world we live in, Jesper. I mean, it's becoming tighter and tighter. People's pocketbooks are becoming, kind of leaner and leaner. So
Right.
I think they're making more choices. It's just obviously a very big part of the next 2 to 5 years in this country. But what are some of the benefits of putting a data system in place? I guess first, I'm XYZ VP of manufacturing. I'm sorry. So like just
Right.
like tell me
I think
why do I need a data system?
I think you have to start with the goal in mind always, right?
Hmm? The
Because you can't
strategy.
just put in a data system to collect a bunch of data and not do anything with it. I saw this company in the past that put all these IoT devices onto their manufacturing machines, but they didn't do anything about it. They collected all this data, but they didn't do anything about it. Then what's it worth at that point, right? So you got to start out with the goal in mind. One of the goals that you can do with data collection says, I want to reduce my servicing cost of my manufacturing facility,
Part of the
right?
strategy again, right? That's
That's part of my
yes,
strategy,
yes,
right?
yeah.
How do I do that? I collect data from the machines to tell me what the mean time between failure is.
Hmm.
Maybe I can then, with a large language model or machine learning, today it's called AI, but it's actually been around for a long, long time. If you collect enough data, you can put that into a machine learning environment and you can have AI, as it's called these days, predict when the machine is going to fail.
Right.
Right. So instead of just
Awesome.
saying,
Yeah.
oh, we're going to replace these components every 2 years, now you can actually collect data that says, oh, no, we only have to do it every 2.5 years or 3 years. Oh, by the way, this one, we're predicting this one's going to fail within the next 6 months. So let's fix this one so we don't have downtime on the manufacturing floor. that's where data collection is critically important. But you have to have that goal of being profitable. You have to have that goal of being cost conscious driven. You can't just collect data just to collect data and just not do anything about it. It's almost like that example that we talked about before. If you just buy a data collection system and not use it, now you're just adding OpEx. Now you're reducing your profitability even more. And you have this probably great piece of software sitting over here unused.
Right. Because you didn't have a strategy.
Right?
It's somebody from my group brought it up, but he got it from his old company from years ago, I think Nestle or Unilever. And they just brought up that you don't sell OEE. Like everyone today is so worried about OEE, which is okay, great. But A, they don't know what it is a lot of times, right? They don't, and they're trying to say they have 80% OEE instead of saying, how does this fit my business model? How do I add flexibility into my business model, right? And so if I have a data system, to your point, like where are we at? Where are our gaps, and what do we need to be working on? I That's what I think. I see with the data collection system. I think they're critical. I just, but to your point, I think you need to have that, strategy, data system. Like, because you probably went to places and they're like, "Oh, I want to buy a data system," and you're kind of like, "Why? What are you
Right.
looking? What are you doing?"
It's like when in the old days, maybe 25 years ago, I came across this company that were like, oh, we want to buy this ERP system. And by the way, we want to modify it. We contracted this guy out of California that was going to design everything so it looks like our old system. And I asked him the question, like, why are you then putting in a new system? If it's just going to do the exact same and look the exact same as the old system, you're not going to gain
Right.
any efficiencies.
But it just would be a newer
Stop
price
wasting
tag.
your money,
Yeah.
right? I got in a bit of trouble on the back end because somebody else was telling me, so you don't want to make the sale, Jesper? Well, if they're just wasting money, then why am I here? I would rather go on to actually somebody that can help with things, right?
Right.
So that's the thing. You gotta really have a focus on something that brings benefit to your business with data collection systems and all these things.
So tell me more, like how do you use the data? Because we talked about that before, and like whether it's an ERP system or whether it's a MES or whether it's whatever it is, how do you use the data within the system to drive your business to make better decisions?
I would say start small. Back to the old saying, vision without execution is just an illusion, right? Um, and I think that some people they strategize so much that they forget to make it operational. Let's spend 4 hours or 8 hours a day on going through our systems and our data to see what do we have and go like, okay, what can we use this for? What can we use this data for and this data for? And say, hey, how can we gain efficiencies by using that data, collecting data in a different way, manipulating the data? How can we gain these efficiencies? Instead of putting this giant project, call McKinsey or Bain or whomever, put this giant project in the hopper, right? And 6 months later, you get a bill for, I don't know,
A
half a
lot of
million
money.
bucks,
Yeah.
$1 million, right? A lot of money. And no efficiencies, just a nice 70-page report written by a bunch of accountants.
Really smart people.
Really smart people. Don't get, yeah, they're smart people, but it's not operationalized.
So
So I
start
would
simple
say,
is really what I think you're saying, right? Is start
right,
simple.
yeah, you got to keep it simple, right? It's like, what was it, Steve Jobs? Not Steve Jobs, it was actually Tim Cook that said at one point, making things simple is actually hard. Making things complex is easy.
Hmm.
So you got to focus on, but you got to focus on the simple things, and that's the hard thing. It's like, especially when you look at your data, go into it and stop being emotional about things and go like, oh, this is why we're losing money. Stop that. Look at the data instead. Get on the other side of it. See how you can gain efficiencies, and then you can focus on how you can fix things instead of ruminating over why you're losing money right now. But
And
it's
I'd
got to be a
even
short thing, weekly, bi-weekly, whatever. You got to get quick wins and quick efficiencies.
I'd agree. And actually, that's why and if you don't mind me taking that a half step further, I'd even say at least 75% of the places that we go, if they're trying to install TPM or whatever, they're trying to do it across their entire plant. And it just
Mm-hmm.
becomes too big, too fast. And because the people there weren't using anything yesterday, literally, and now today you want them to use all these systems. And we say, start with a line, like figure out which line is 30% of, again, you could use data to figure out which line is your most important line, right? Or which two
Mhm.
lines, and start there and then spread it out from there, right? So I agree with you start small, and I think it's even data to just collect data on one line and start doing, like you said, mean time between failure and
Right.
your downtime reasons, and then get focused on one line and then spread it from there. That's part of your micro strategy within a bigger strategy. So, I'm sorry. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
I
no,
think
no,
it's
no.
perfect to start simple. I agree 100%
No,
on starting
you're
simple.
spot on. And I've actually seen a few manufacturing companies in this world that are really good at creating efficiencies. One up in northern Indiana, metal manufacturing company out there. I can't mention any names, not even
No,
the
no.
good ones, right? But the owner, he actually was focused on the data collection and say, how can I make this efficient to the point that everything is used when it comes to this data collection. Everything is optimized, right? That's where you got to get to. But he did the same thing. He took one step at a time and says, okay, let's not make everything efficient from the get-go. Let's
Narrow in.
optimize this machine that punches holes in metal and stuff like that, right? One step at a time to the point where I think he actually increased the profit margins over a few years by 10 to 15 points.
Wow, that's a lot
Yeah,
within a business, no matter what size business you are. So,
right.
any uh, any thoughts to wrap up today? Anything that you would?
No, I think it's like we talked about. It's like how do we get to use this data? How do we stop procrastinating about, well, I should be doing something, but do something. Just do it small. It's like when you were a kid and you had to clean up the room and you looked at this thing and you're like, oh my God, this is I don't know how to get done with this thing, right?
Great
But
analogy.
you
Yeah,
just got to start in a corner, right?
right.
Got to toss everything out of there and, oh, I can see my chair again. It's the same thing on the manufacturing floor. Let's fix one little thing because now you also get a victory. And that victory gives you the energy to now fix the next little thing. And before you know it, you have a very efficient manufacturing floor. But you got to do it one step at a time, and you got to focus on the data that means something to you, not just data for data's sake.
Well, thank you very much, Jesper. I appreciate your time today. I think it's a great conversation. I would strongly encourage folks watching this to feel free to leave comments on the bottom. We'll answer any questions. I would hope that I'll forward them along to Jesper, and he can answer any questions that you might have and offer you any advice. I always say advice is free.
Yeah,
The work we charge you for, but the advice is always free.
absolutely.
So thank you for joining ShamRockin, and thank you everyone for watching our podcast today.